Alright, now we're going to be removing the bash bar. You need to remove the bash bar because you can't fit the heat exchanger without removing it. There's not enough space. So start removing it. You're going to use a 12mm socket. So I have mine already here. It's pretty easy to take out. You don't need like a breaker bar or anything. But yeah, let's go ahead and start removing it. That way we can start putting the heat exchanger on. So we're going to start taking off the heat exchanger. There's going to be two 10mm bolts that go on this side. Once you remove those, there's going to be another one on this side as well. Then once you remove those three 10mm bolts, this thing's going to be loose. I heard that you have to take this off here to be able to put the heat exchanger in. That way, just because there's not enough space to be able to do it. Here is the stock heat exchanger. So from the stock heat exchanger, you will need to be placing the hoses in the same exact spot as they came off. And then the only thing that you'll be needing is this rubber piece right here. You'll be removing this rubber piece and putting it onto the AMS heat exchanger. In size comparison, this one is a lot thinner. The AMS is about this much thicker. It's about twice the size. And then in length, of course, there's a huge difference in length size. So it was a pretty easy install. It was kind of hard to remove the stock heat exchanger and along with putting the AMS one in there, but you just had to really push it in there to pretty much get it in. And of course, removing that side piece really helped out. Let's go back to the car and start installing the AMS heat exchanger. Alright guys, today's the next day. So yesterday we pretty much drove the car for a while, just to make sure that I could bleed the system properly. Now what I ended up doing was I grabbed this hose here
and I loosened it up. That way we can get some of the air to come out. Now, when I was doing this, of course, I got a little bit messy because as I was doing it, we would rev the car, and then the pump would turn on, and like a little bit would come out. At first, there wasn't a lot of coolant coming out or anything really. It was just like a lot of air. There was no coolant coming out at all, so it was taking a long time. But after a while, it looked like it started working, started going through. And yesterday when I checked the coolant reservoir, it was full. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's pretty much empty. It's really low. It's under the minimum. And this one as well. This one was like a little bit under max, and now there's like nothing in there. You can barely see. There's a little bit, but it's not a lot. So I need to refill this, and then once we refill it, we're gonna turn it on, let it run for a bit, and see if we need to add any more or if it's good. When we were driving yesterday, I didn't have any heating issues or anything, so I'm just gonna refill it right now, see if we have any issues today. Alright guys, what is up? Today is Friday. I installed the heat exchanger about 5 days ago, which was on Sunday. So we're gonna go ahead and check the coolant reservoirs. So you have to check this one here, and you also have to check this one. So every day I've had to add at least a little bit of fluid. Right now, today, it's early in the morning, so you can see there's like nothing in this one. There's nothing in there. If you go over to this one still has some. This one's still good. It's still at the minimum and max. So you want to keep filling it up until it's either between the minimum or max, and then you should be good. So we've had to refill it for the past few days. Usually, I guess it goes down within the next day. So every morning you have to keep checking it. Every time you pretty much get in your car, you have to check it, because it takes time for the system to bleed. There was some days where I did have to add some fluid, and then there were some other days where I didn't have to add any at all. So just make sure you keep checking it until it doesn't go down anymore. Now here's the fluid I'm going to be using. This is Nissan fluid. In my opinion, it should be the only one that you should be using for this car. But for the very first day, what I did is I bled the system through this here. So what you would do is you would clamp this, pull it off, and then you would rev the engine. You guys probably saw in the video how I rev the engine, and then I would check. And the fluid, along with the air that's trapped in the system, usually would come out. So you will see both come at the same time. And that's why it looks like that. So there's a bunch of fluid all over the place. So yeah, continue to bleed the system. It's gonna take a few days. You want to do this the first day, and then the rest of the days you just allow the system to bleed itself as you're driving around. I've checked the car. I didn't see any leaks at all coming from the heat exchanger itself and the fittings, or the actual lines themselves. I didn't see any fluid actually coming out. So I'm assuming that there's just air in the system, and it's gonna take about a week or more to pretty much completely bleed out. Alright, I went ahead and added fluid. So you guys can see it's right there. It's at the minimum and max. You never want to overfill it, just because when you turn the car on, with the pressure of the car, it actually lifts up the fluid and it will go higher. So right now it's at the minimum or max, but later on it might be like up to this point right here at the top. Same thing with this side. It might be at minimum or max, and then it'll eventually go up a little bit when turning on the car. So like I said, it is a process. This is not going to take a day to bleed out. It takes several days for it to pretty much completely bleed out. Like I said, this is Friday. I installed it Sunday, so it's already been 5 days, and the fluid keeps going down. So If it continues to go down after, let's say, a week and a half or 2 weeks, then I'm just gonna end up taking it to the dealer so they can check it out to see what's going on. Because before, I didn't see any issues at all with it leaking or fluid coming out. I doubt that it's going to be anything that's wrong with the engine. Maybe I just have to check the fittings again, but I'd rather just take it to the dealer since it's still under warranty, and they can check it out. I think it's just the air bubbles getting out of the system as the day goes by, because we daily drive this car, so it's not like the car just sits here. We're actually driving every single day. We commute about, I would say, 50 to 40 miles a day, and while we drive the car, so well, that's 50 miles actually to work and another 50 miles to get back. So that's about 100 miles each day that we're driving this car, and not one time has it overheated. And that's because we consistently check the fluid and we have never let it get low to the point where it's under minimum, and we're driving it that way. Alright guys, so today has been a week and 5 days since we installed the heat exchanger on the Q. So I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's coolant in there still. I just checked it this morning. So technically it took about a week and 1 day. We installed the heat exchanger on Sunday. It took a week from there. Checked on Sunday again. We still had to fill up the reservoir, and then come Monday, which was a week and a day, the reservoir went down a little bit, filled that night, and it hasn't gone down since. So today's Thursday, which is a week and 5 days from then, and nothing's gone down. So if the system, I believe, has pretty much bled out completely, hasn't gone down anymore. It's been good for 3-4 days now. Continuing on the video from yesterday, so today is actually Friday. I checked the reservoirs again. They were still normal, no fluid went down. The car has never actually overheated since we've been driving it. It's been perfectly fine, but I think that's mainly because we've been checking the fluid every single time we drive the car. So even when we're at work, I go ahead and check it. I open the hood, check really quick, and then I go ahead and turn on the car. So before even turning on the car and going anywhere, I'm always checking the fluid to make sure it's good and it hasn't gone down. Like, there are a few days where I will wake up the next day and then I'll check and there was nothing in there. So you need to be really careful to make sure you're checking every single time that you go in there. So after driving it for a while, haven't had any issues. The car's performing a lot better than what it did before. I live in Arizona, so it's really hot over here. You can get temps up to like 100 degrees. So after doing like one pull here in AZ, the car already got heat soaked. Like, it was already hot, and it would already boggle, like it wouldn't move as fast as it did within the first run. After adding the heat exchanger, you will notice that the car does want to pull more often, and it won't heat soak like it did before. After doing a few runs, I noticed that the car was still performing well, heat soaked or anything, so it was still performing well. So it does work. It does actually keep the car cooler than what it did before. So it is a functioning part, and I do actually recommend it. Now, the only reason I picked this one over other brands is because there was actually a sale on the Infiniti website in California. I think it was Orange County. I would get the AMS heat exchanger if you had the money, just because it is a covered part through Infiniti, and it won't void warranty or anything like that. I had heard that maybe other brands would, like BMS. Those are obviously the cheaper brands. Like, you can spend up to like $300 to $400 on one of those, or you can get like a Frozen. I think it's called Frozen Boost. Frozen Boost is a really cheap alternative. It's like $100, almost 200. So you have all the other alternatives that will be a lot cheaper that could perform just as well, or just the same as this AMS one. But the only reason I got this one is because it was on sale, and it's covered under warranty, so you won't have any issues. Now, there are other options like Mishimoto. I was actually gonna go with Mishimoto just because of the price, and it's almost pretty much the same thing as the AMS, just a different brand. In the video, you saw exactly like what I did. The heat exchanger was kind of hard to put into its place. I'm trying to shove it in that area. It was pretty small. It was a really tight fit. Even getting the stock heat exchanger was kind of difficult. You really had to pull on it. I actually bent the stock heat exchanger a little bit because when you pulled it out, it kind of bent it. It's so thin that it just bent the heat exchanger.
But putting the AMS in there, I was a little bit more careful, tried not bending it. So I actually pushed it in there and it went in after removing that side part that I had on there. But other than that, it was a super easy install. It's just really time consuming because you always have to be checking the coolant to make sure it's good. I haven't had any issues at all, no leaks or anything. There is a bleeder at the top. I don't think I mentioned it, but in the cinematic there's like a little bleeder at the top that you can use. I would recommend using that when you're bleeding the system. I do recommend that you guys get a vacuum tool. The only reason I did it my way is because I didn't have one, but I do highly recommend it just because it's going to assure you that there's not going to be any air in the system. Because what the vacuum tool does is it pretty much takes out all the air from the system, and then you have like a little I think it's like a switch or something, and you turn it on and it pulls in all the liquid from like a bucket or whatever you have, and it puts it inside the car, assuring that there is no air in the system. I believe that is the best way to do it, but I did just because I didn't have it and I didn't feel like spending money. You can actually take it to the dealer and they would be able to do it for you as well. This part is a performance mod, but it doesn't give you any horsepower. What it is technically keeping the car cool. That way when you're like running higher boost levels, or actually just running the car in general, it's gonna keep the car cool instead of getting all heat soaked. So it's allowing you to pretty much maintain peaks and boost, and it's also allowing you to maintain your horsepower, as once it gets heat soaked it's pretty much decreasing the amount of performance that the car has. But once you add this heat exchanger, it's allowing you to pretty much be able to maintain that horsepower that you're pretty much trying to get to. Just by adding this heat exchanger, you're not really looking to get horsepower, but instead maintaining it by keeping the car cool. That's what this is pretty much doing essentially. Alright guys, that's pretty much going to conclude the video. I do have a few more things planned for the Q. I would like to get some coilovers and then also like some custom work to the hood. So if you guys are looking for more videos on the Q or even the 370Z, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, and I'll for sure catch you guys on the next one. Peace.